Hey folks, what's here? Welcome back to another Poem Master video, and we haven't talked about this in a while, and we do have, much more 6-star EXs, so it's much more interesting to talk about now. So, 6-star EX is very, very hard to acquire, right? And I've talked about this a lot before, just in terms of like how good they are versus how much resources you need to make. And, like, they're not even that great. I mean, they're good. I'm not saying they're bad, but like, it's not like anything game breaking, but like, damn, they're expensive to get, man. They're expensive to get. And then, you know what? I don't want to get into that whole spiel. But yeah, since they are very hard to get, right? In terms of resources and stuff, I'd say probably some folks might want, to use them in the places that they probably, want to use them in, right? And not sort of waste them like that. So let's go over these and check out which ones are probably excel a bit better with these 6-star X's and in comparison to some that don't. Because even though everyone's effect is the same, I mean, in terms of rules, right? It's all the supports get a 1.5, extra sync move boost on their first sync move. All techs get an extra 1.5 times damage on their sync moves, and then all strikers turns it into an AoE sync move. The differences between certain units are very, very different because, some units rely on their sync moves to do damage in terms of, techs and strikers, right? And then some don't. Some their sync moves are kind of doo-doo. Right, so yeah, let's get into this. Obviously, I'd probably say just because the difference isn't that big, I would probably still recommend folks to just go for whichever their favorite sync pair is, right, in terms of either character or costume or outfit or whatever design. But again, if you do want to go into the specifics, we could talk about that as well. So, anyways, let's start from the top. I'd say probably one of the best ones is Singsu Blue, right? Just in general, support 6-star EXs are just so much better. They're incredibly powerful, right? That extra 1.5 times on your first sync move is it's huge. It's basically giving your whole team like a free crits multiplier, which is also 1.5, right, for free. In terms of damage, again, you just do half more of your damage, right? It's overall insane. And blue also has the ability to give your whole team AoE endurance after you use your sync move, and blue also gets the extra defenses at Mega Blastoise, right? So that's very, very good, and you only need to use it once, right? You only need to use it once. You get your AoE endurance. You get Mega Blastoise stats in there defensively. It's fantastic. Obviously not doesn't do any damage to the dude's sync move, but again, that's not what we're going for here, right? We're going for that extra 1.5 times damage buff. Like Singsu Blue is just fantastic in terms of his 6-star EX. Personally, I don't want to do it just because I don't like his jacket patterns. I think they look pretty whack. I actually kind of prefer his like regular outfit design instead. Or in terms of his I just like his normal jacket patterns better. Although I do like the colors better on 6-star EX, but the patterns are a bit too yeah, they stand out a bit too much, which I'm not a huge fan of. But yeah, in terms of just battle-wise, this guy's fantastic, his 6-star EX. Moving on, next one I'd probably say is in that range is Lily. Lily is great as well. Lily doesn't have that extra, the stat changes that Blue has in terms of Mega, but Lily does more damage, I think, on the sync move, right? Unless in Rain, I don't know, whatever. Lily does decent damage overall, but Lily basically what she also has is that AoE heal every time she sinks, right? That AoE heal on her sync move is fantastic. However, I do have to say, usually you won't have to get it on the first sync, because Lily kind of operates a bit differently than Singsu Blue in terms of when you want to sync, right? In terms of Singsu Blue, you want to sync as soon as possible. You want to get your first sync in there with Singsu Blue, right? And you go Mega Blastoise. On the other hand, Lily, you kind of want to wait till the second or third sync, depending on your whole team's HP levels, right? Because you kind of want to, take some damage first before you heal, right? So the heal actually makes sense. So for example, if you want to take an opponent's sync move first and then heal up, that's obviously, much better over there, right? So yeah, there's that, I guess. Moving on, let's talk about Next tier of sync pairs, right? I'd say Rosa, solidly, right? Rosa, mainly just because she's a support. 6 REX, support EX, so 6 REXs are just so good. You can throw them on any team, right? Strikers are kind of, you have to depend on what your opponent's weaknesses are, right? All that stuff. And support, you could just throw it, in a lot of scenarios, and it helps out tremendously. And just again, support EX, their sync moves are so powerful, right? Their 6 REX sync moves. It's just that the reason why Rosa isn't higher is Rosa doesn't really have anything extra that she gets after she sinks. Like Blue gets stat buffs, Blue gets AoE endurance, Lily gets heals, right? Rosa doesn't really get much, but again, just from the base of that 1.5 times, it's just really good. Moving on, let's see. I'd probably put Signu Grimsley in here as well. Signu Grimsley does tremendous amounts of damage, right? Dude has inertia, double down 5. Right, his sync move is a sync nuke, right? If you guys saw my video with the regular, 6-star Elisa, the AoE sync nuke, right? Just imagine that, but Grimsley against water weak opponents and more powerful, right? Grimsley's just straight up does more damage than Elisa's against water type opponents, not against neutral opponents, because then don't trigger the double down, right? But dude does a lot of damage on that, obviously, which is very good. And plus, you mega the Sharpedo, and then mega Sharpedo very fast and gets more attack, right? All that stuff. Speaking of Elisa, let's put Elisa here as well. Elisa, as you guys saw already, very very good. AoE sync nuke, same thing. Inertia as well, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. Just AoE sync nukers are just great, right? Moving on, I'd say also Hilbert as well. Hilbert, I think it was Haymaker, right? If I remember correctly. Yep, Haymaker for the sync nuke. So another AoE sync nuker, which is nice. However, I do have to say, I don't think in terms of AoE sync nuke, I don't think Hilbert is as good as the other two, just because it kind of kneecaps Hilbert's passive a bit, which is carry on, right? Oh, actually, never mind. Never. I was thinking of someone else. It's not Hilbert. Actually, it works very well for Hilbert because it's another Pokemon in the field to play feints, so that's fine for Hilbert. What was the thing? Oh yeah, Hilbert also has like +1 crit on the sync move as well, so overall really really good. I was thinking of someone else. I was thinking of Illuzamine, which we'll talk about in a bit. So yeah, there's that. I'd say in terms of that next tier. Moving on. I'd say Red. We'd put Red here. Here's the thing with Red. Red is very dependent on the team comp, right? It could either be really, really good. You could, in certain circumstances, you could put it, as good as these guys. But the only thing is that it's just better to not, 6REX Red, right? Well, in that sense, it's just better to not use his sync move too often, because it's just better if you just run Red with Lyra, and Lyra, I don't know why I brought Lyra up here, but it's just better to use Lyra's sync move for that Infinite Sun instead, because Red does have that extra, and Red does have sync nuking potential as well, right? But again, it's just not as good, right? It's because AoE sync moves in general aren't like a huge deal, because usually the sides are relatively easy to take out, right? But instead of AoE sync nuking with Red, it's just better to sync with Lyra and get consistent Sun, so you could trigger Speeding Sun 2 with Charizard and get that extra 50% damage on Charizard's Blast Burns or Heat Waves or whatever, right? Or Flare Blitzes if you want to do that. So yeah, again, it depends on the circs. I mean, in really short battles and easier battles, okay, it's better, right? You could bring in Blaine and that works out. But in harder battles, longer battles, it's just much better to not do that, right? So yeah, there's that. Moving on. I'd say Volcaner, right? Volcaner does a decent amount of damage on his sync move. Does he have any, I'm not 100% sure, but wait, Luxray, does he have any, I don't think he had any, sync nuking, stuff, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah, he doesn't, but he's just overall just does good damage, because, again, he has around as much, attack that Elisa has. Obviously, you don't have inertia, right? But you also do have that extra, buff on this. Increased power is paralyzed, so it doesn't do terrible damage, and plus it's extra 1.5 times with good attack in general, and you get the buff on electric terrain as well, right? So you'll do good damage on it. The only thing is, like, if you have both gridded Elisa and gridded Vulcaner, it's just better to, use it on Elisa, right, in comparison. Moving on, let's see. Acerola. Acerola actually does decent here as well. Acerola with Mimikyu, they actually have, let's see, a Fuzzy Striker 5, extra 50% on the sync move if the target is confused. On top of that, you also get the power up when the opponent's confused innately on the sync move. Then you pick up Fuzzy Striker 5, then you get an extra 1.5 times on your sync move. The damage is really, really good over there, right? So you could obviously, again, pick that up. That does decent damage. Moving on, Gladion. Gladion does good sync nuke damage as well, sorta. It's not the best, but it's fine, right, for the most part. Again, I think he has a power up on. Actually, no, I don't think he. Oh no, he does. It's not like a power up per se, but like his base power sync move is just higher because it's a normal type, even though you change it afterwards. But it starts as a normal type, so he gets the extra, BP bonus because it's a normal type, right? So you do get that, and then yeah, it just overall does decent damage. Double down 3 as well, extra 30% if it's super effective. But then again, Gladion, you do have to, it does have the issue of, okay, are you facing someone that's super effective? Because, well, you can change your type, but you can only change it once, and if you take out that one opponent, if there's someone in the back that's a different type, then you're kind of useless afterwards, right, unfortunately. So, yeah, I mean, Gladion depends, right? I could say him as, in certain situations, could be as good as these guys, but maybe not as good. Like, same thing with Red, right? Red, in the right situations, in, easier stages with, like, Blaine, you could be as good as these guys, right? But generally the situations, right, make it so that it's not as good. So let's see, moving on. Susu at least fine. It's like Susu Leaf does like really, really good damage, and if you're using her as a striker, that's obviously much better in that case, right? So it's just that like Singsu Leaf doesn't exactly have like anything special for it, right? Other than the extra boost that she gets if the opponent is poisoned or badly poisoned. But once you mega Singsu Leaf, you get more better stats, all that stuff, and she just does a lot of damage. it's just like a convenience. Like you're megaing her anyways. Why not do a bit 1.5 times more damage on the sync move, right? And again, she does do good damage because of her, I guess, just raw stats, all that stuff that she does. But I don't think it's anything special. If you want to put her one down too, that's fine, I guess. Moving on, Morty. Morty's fine. It's just that Morty kind of relies on that damage too, right? Like, Morty has Blind Spot, right? Which is nice. But the only thing with Morty is, every time you use Phantom Force, it's like 2 turns, and you only get 1 sync move countdown, so you get your sync move, like, a bit slower than everyone else. Like, again, this is a very, very powerful sync move, but you just get it slower, which is slightly unfortunate, right? That's why I don't think he's as good as any of the other guys. If you want to move him down one, that's fine as well, right? Moving on. Luzamine's a tough one. I kind of want to put her here, right? Just because, like, well, first of all, she doesn't get anything on her sync move, and yeah, she doesn't really get anything much on her sync move, other than like Rejuvenate 6, which is, you don't want to pick that up anyways, just because she has like 0 gauge issues, right? She's just so fast, right? But on the other hand, she does a lot of damage on her sync move because she has a lot of stats, right? Just raw stats. But then the big issue with Luzamine is her passive, right? Positive reinforcement 3, and this is like the big thing about Luzamine's sync move, right? Which could also potentially make her worse because you made her a 6-star EX, right? Because um, it only triggers when you knock out an opponent with a move, and it's unlike, Hilbert when someone faints or whatever, right? And that means sync moves don't count. If you AoE sync nuke someone, you're not getting that. If you take out anyone with sync move, you're not getting that extra damage buffs. So that actually works kind of against her, right? So like in some situation, you don't even want to use this at all, right? So that's the issue with Pheromones over here, and then Wally as well. I don't know. This is a tough one. Like in between, sorta. I'd probably lean more towards down here, just because like Wally, like he does have Cakewalk, right? He still does have Cakewalk, but then again, he is a Mega with not that much BP on the sync move, right? The sync move is good. It gives you a +1 crit, which is fantastic, but like in just damage wise, it's not that great. And also the other annoying thing about Wally is that like the sync move is physical, but Wally's best build is special with Focus Blast, because Focus Blast just does so much more damage than close combat, right? Like Focus Blast Wally is generally what you want to run, so in most case scenarios you will be just buffing Wally's special attack and not physical attack, so this one won't get that much benefit from it either. So that's why I want to say I'd probably put Wally down there as well, right? I mean, if Wally didn't have that like one restriction, I think he'd be better. If it was, if his sync move was special, he wouldn't be as bad. But yeah, with that in mind, I don't think it's as good, unfortunately. So anyways, yeah, that's me with this one, I guess. Hope you guys enjoy. Let me know guys think in the comments down below. Yeah, again, like I mentioned before, mainly I would suggest folks just use it on which characters they like, which outfits they like, right? I mean, personally, that's what I've been doing. I use mine on Elisa and Red, I think. Are those the only two? Oh, and Luzmine, because I love Luzmine and her outfit, right? I mean, these are the three that I went with, which obviously, Red and Luzmine not as good, right? Elisa's good, right? And I didn't go with Blue because not a huge fan of his jacket. Lily, I want to go with, but I'm just scared if they ever, throw out like 6-star EX Sabrina soon or whatever, then I'd have to use my tickets on that, which I'm not, really prepared to do. So anyways, that's me with this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like and enjoy this video, subscribe to my channel for some more Master content. I'll see you guys in the next one.